Picture this. The gates explode open in Nagoya, Japan. Chaos strikes. The jockey falls. The crowd gasps. Destiny seems shattered. But one chestnut stallion refuses to stop. Riderless, fearless, relentless, Vanyar thunders forward, his hooves pounding like freedom itself. This is not just a race. It is rebellion galloping into history. Every heartbeat in the stadium became a drum of suspense. Could instinct outpace control? Could freedom defeat strategy? With each stride, Vanyar answered. His mane flew like a banner of defiance, his gallop a symphony of courage. The crowd, once stunned, now roared in disbelief, swept into the tide of his will. This was no ordinary contest. It was revolution unfolding in real time, a living testament to resilience, to the untamed spirit that refuses to bow. And when he crossed the finish line, riderless yet victorious, the world stood transformed. Vanyar was no longer just a horse. He was a legend, a symbol, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are born from chaos. His story gallops beyond Nagoya, echoing in our imagination, urging us all to break limits, defy expectations, and claim our own impossible triumphs. In the bustling city of Nagoya, Japan, where tradition and modernity collide in dazzling harmony, a story unfolded that would shake the very foundations of horse racing. The air was electric, the crowd restless, anticipation rippling through the grandstands as the gates prepared to open. Yet no one, neither the trainers, nor the bettors, nor the thousands of spectators, could have imagined the spectacle that was about to erupt. At the center of this drama stood Vanyar, a sleek, powerful racehorse whose muscles rippled like coiled steel beneath his chestnut coat. Known for his speed, admired for his spirit, Vanyar was already a crowd favorite. But on this day, destiny had something extraordinary in store. As the race began, a shocking twist occurred. His jockey was unseated, tumbling to the dirt in the chaos of the start. Gasps echoed across the stadium. A horse without a rider is usually doomed to falter, to veer off course, to be pulled from competition. But Vanyar was no ordinary horse. Instead of slowing, instead of surrendering, he surged forward, alone, unbridled, uncommanded. His hooves thundered against the track, each stride a declaration of independence. The crowd, stunned into silence, watched as instinct replaced guidance, as raw willpower replaced strategy. What began as disaster transformed into defiance. Every second became a heartbeat of suspense. Could a horse truly run, compete, and triumph without the guiding hands of a jockey? Vanyar answered with a resounding yes. His gallop was poetry, his determination a revolution. In Nagoya that day, the impossible became reality. A racehorse, riderless yet relentless, charging toward victory. This was not just a race, it was a moment of pure, unfiltered courage, a living testament to instinct, resilience, and the untamed spirit of freedom. The sun hung high over Nagoya Racecourse, casting long shadows across the track as the crowd buzzed with anticipation. It was a day like any other, or so it seemed. Horses lined up at the gates, their jockeys adjusting reins, whispering final commands, preparing for the thunderous sprint ahead. Every detail mattered: the distance, the pace, the strategy. This was not just a test of speed, but of perfect synchronization between horse and rider. Among them stood Vanyar, gleaming like a warrior ready for battle. His chestnut coat shimmered under the light, his muscles taut with energy. his eyes burning with focus. Trainers had spoken of his potential. Bettors had placed their faith in him, and fans leaned forward in expectation. Yet no one could foresee the twist that would make this race legendary. The gates clanged open, and chaos erupted. Hooves pounded, dirt flew, the symphony of speed began. But in the frenzy of the start, disaster struck. Vanyar's jockey was jolted from the saddle, tumbling helplessly to the ground. Gasps tore through the grandstands. A horse without a jockey is usually a horse without hope. Rules, tradition, and common sense all dictated the same outcome: withdrawal, defeat, an unfinished race. Yet Vanyar did not falter. He did not slow, did not veer off course. Instead, he surged forward, riderless but resolute, as if guided by an invisible hand. The other horses thundered alongside, their jockeys urging them with whips and shouts, but Vanyar ran to a rhythm of his own, a rhythm born of instinct, courage, and sheer willpower. The stage was set not for an ordinary contest, but for a revolution. This was no longer just a race. It was the beginning of a story that would defy logic, rewrite expectations, and capture hearts forever. For a fleeting moment, the stadium seemed frozen in disbelief. A riderless horse charging down the track was supposed to be a tragedy, not a triumph. Spectators leaned forward, breaths caught, waiting for Vanyar to stumble, to veer off course, to surrender to chaos. But instead, something extraordinary began to unfold. Vanyar's stride lengthened, his rhythm sharpened. Without the weight of a jockey, he seemed lighter, faster, freer. His hooves struck the earth like war drums, each beat echoing through the grandstands. The other horses, guided by their riders, fought for position, but Vanyar surged ahead as if destiny itself had taken the reins. The crowd erupted into a chorus of gasps and cheers. What had begun as disaster transformed into defiance. Every second became a heartbeat of suspense, every stride a question. Could instinct alone outmatch strategy? Could raw willpower defeat calculated control? Vanyar answered with a gallop that was pure poetry, a dance of muscle and spirit that defied logic. As he rounded the bend, dirt flying in his wake, the impossible began to feel inevitable. His chestnut coat gleamed under the sun, his mane whipped like a banner of rebellion. He was no longer just a competitor. He was a force of nature, a living testament to resilience. The audience, once stunned, now roared with exhilaration, swept into the tide of his courage. This was the turning point, the moment when doubt gave way to awe. Vanyar was not simply running a race, he was rewriting the very meaning of competition. Alone yet unstoppable, he transformed calamity into destiny, proving that sometimes the greatest victories are born not from guidance, but from the unshakable spirit to run free. The final stretch of the Nagoya track shimmered like a battlefield drenched in sunlight. Horses thundered forward, jockeys crouched low, urging every ounce of speed from their mounts. Yet all eyes were fixed on one figure: Vanyar, riderless, defiant, unstoppable. The crowd's roar rose to a fever pitch as he surged ahead, his strides longer, his rhythm flawless. Without commands, without reins, he seemed guided by something deeper, an instinct carved into his very soul. Each pounding hoof was a declaration: I will not be denied. The other competitors fought valiantly, their jockeys shouting, whips cracking. But Vanyar was already beyond them. His chestnut coat gleamed like fire. His mane streamed like a banner of rebellion. He was not just running, he was soaring, transcending the limits of expectation. As the finish line loomed, the stadium erupted into chaos. Cheers, gasps, disbelief. Could it truly happen? Could a horse without a rider claim victory in a race built on partnership? In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Vanyar crossed the line first, his hooves striking the earth with triumphant finality. Silence fell, then exploded into thunderous applause. Spectators leapt to their feet, some with tears in their eyes, others with mouths agape. Trainers shook their heads in awe. Officials scrambled to confirm what their eyes had already witnessed. Against every rule of logic, against every tradition of the sport, Vanyar had done the impossible. This was not merely a win. It was a revolution. A riderless horse had conquered the race, proving that sometimes greatness needs no guidance, no command, only courage, instinct, and the will to run free. In Nagoya that day, victory was redefined, and Vanyar's name etched itself into legend. When Vanyar thundered past the finish line, riderless yet victorious, the stadium dissolved into chaos. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, an eerie pause as thousands of eyes tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Then, like a dam bursting, the crowd erupted. Cheers, gasps, and cries of disbelief rolled through the grandstands, a tidal wave of emotion crashing over Nagoya Racecourse. Spectators clutched at one another, some laughing in astonishment, others wiping tears from their eyes. Children pointed in wonder, adults shook their heads in disbelief. Trainers and officials rushed to the track, their faces etched with shock and awe. This was not supposed to happen. A horse without a jockey was meant to be withdrawn, meant to falter, meant to lose. Yet Vanyar had rewritten the script, and the racing world stood stunned. Commentators scrambled for words, their voices trembling with excitement. Unprecedented, one declared. Historic, another gasped. Social media lit up instantly, clips of the race spreading like wildfire, captions screaming about the miracle in Nagoya. Within minutes, Vanyar's name was trending worldwide, his victory hailed as a phenomenon that transcended sport. Officials debated furiously, flipping through rulebooks, questioning what this meant for racing regulations. But no matter the technicalities, the truth was undeniable. Vanyar had won, fair and square, against all odds. His trainer, overwhelmed, could only whisper he wanted it. He truly wanted it. The aftermath was more than celebration. It was revelation. Vanyar's triumph became a symbol of resilience, instinct, and the untamed spirit of freedom. In that moment, he was no longer just a racehorse. He was a legend, a living reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are born from chaos, and that courage needs no rider to shine. Vanyar's victory was more than a sporting upset. It was a living metaphor, a moment that transcended the racetrack and spoke to something primal in the human spirit. In Nagoya that day, the chestnut stallion became more than a competitor. He became a symbol of resilience, freedom, and the raw power of instinct. Horse racing has always been celebrated as a partnership, man and animal, strategy and strength, discipline and desire. Yet Vanyar shattered that narrative. His triumph without a jockey was a declaration that greatness does not always require guidance, that sometimes the purest victories are born from chaos and courage. He ran not because he was told to, but because he chose to. That choice transformed him into a beacon of independence. For the crowd, the symbolism was undeniable. Here was a creature stripped of command, stripped of control, yet refusing to surrender. His gallop became a metaphor for perseverance in the face of adversity, for breaking free from limitations, for daring to defy expectations. Vanyar's run was not just about speed, it was about spirit, about the refusal to be defined by circumstance. In that moment, he embodied the universal struggle, to rise when the world expects you to fall, to push forward when logic says you cannot, to claim victory when defeat seems inevitable. His riderless triumph resonated far beyond the racetrack, inspiring conversations about courage, autonomy, and the untamed will to succeed. Vanyar was no longer just a horse. He was a revolution in motion, a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary victories come when we trust instinct, embrace freedom, and dare to run our own race. Vanyar's victory did not end at the finish line. It reverberated far beyond Nagoya, shaking the very foundations of horse racing culture. What unfolded that day was not simply a spectacle, it was a challenge to centuries of tradition, a question mark stamped boldly across the rules of the sport. Horse racing has always been defined by partnership, the jockey's strategy and the horse's strength fused together in perfect harmony. Yet Vanyar shattered that paradigm. His riderless triumph forced the racing world to confront an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps instinct and spirit can sometimes outshine human guidance. Trainers, commentators, and officials debated furiously. Was this a fluke, a miracle, or a glimpse into something deeper? In racing circles, whispers grew louder. Could this change how races are perceived? Would regulations need to adapt to account for such unprecedented outcomes? Some argued that Vanyar's victory was a one-in-a-million anomaly, destined to be remembered as folklore. Others saw it as a revolution, proof that horses are more than extensions of their jockeys. They are athletes in their own right, capable of extraordinary feats when left to their own instincts. Fans embraced the story with fervor. For them, Vanyar was not just a horse, but a hero, a symbol of independence and resilience. His triumph sparked conversations about freedom, courage, and the raw beauty of competition unfiltered by human control. Racing enthusiasts across the globe replayed the footage, marveling at the sheer audacity of a horse that refused to quit. In the end, Vanyar's impact was undeniable. He transformed a single race into a cultural milestone, reminding the world that sometimes the most powerful victories are those that defy tradition, rewrite expectations, and ignite imaginations. Long after the dust settled on the track in Nagoya, the legend of Vanyar continued to gallop through hearts and headlines. His victory was not confined to a single afternoon. It became a story retold in whispers and shouts, in awe and admiration across the globe. What he accomplished was more than a win. It was a rewriting of possibility, a reminder that courage can defy convention. In racing circles, his name became synonymous with resilience. Trainers spoke of him as proof that instinct is as powerful as strategy. Fans hailed him as a hero, a horse who needed no rider to prove his worth. Children grew up hearing of the chestnut stallion who ran free and still triumphed, his story inspiring them to believe in their own strength when guidance seemed absent. Vanyar's legacy stretched beyond sport. He became a metaphor for independence, a symbol of perseverance in the face of chaos. His riderless gallop was etched into memory as a living parable, that sometimes the greatest victories come when we trust ourselves, when we dare to run unshackled, when we embrace the wild spirit within. Even years later, the footage of his race continues to circulate, replayed with gasps and cheers, each viewing reigniting the magic of that impossible moment. In Nagoya, his name is spoken with reverence, his triumph celebrated as one of the most extraordinary events in racing history. Vanyar was not just a horse who won a race. He was a revolution in motion, a legend carved into the annals of sport, a reminder that freedom itself can be victorious. His legacy endures, galloping endlessly in the imagination of all who witnessed and all who will hear the tale of the horse who ran alone and conquered. Vanyar's story is not just about a race, it is about rewriting destiny. In Nagoya, a riderless horse shattered centuries of tradition, proving that instinct can outpace strategy, that freedom can triumph over control. His gallop was more than speed. It was rebellion, resilience, and raw courage unleashed. Vanyar reminds us that the greatest victories are born when we dare to run unshackled, when we trust the fire within. His legacy is not confined to the track, it gallops endlessly in our imagination, urging us all to break limits, defy expectations, and claim our own impossible victories.